board and the buttons as well. So no matter what level your learners are at, what abilities they have, I'm thrilled to help you out today and figure out what's going to be best for you all. Awesome. Karen, welcome. New today to buttons. Awesome. Great to have you. A lot of folks are brand new when they attend Bootcamp, but if you've already started, that's great too. Let me know how your button journey's been going so far, and we can tailor this to what you all need. And so if you're just joining us, welcome. I'll introduce myself in just a moment, doing some live demoing with my cats here. And if you would, in the chat, introduce yourselves with your name, your learner's name, age, species, breed, any relevant info like that. And again, how your button teaching journey is going so far. All right, Karen, welcome to you and Freya, 1.5-year-old lab. Great to have you, Calvin. Calvin is such an important part of our FluentPet community. You will see him around frequently and in the chat here today. And he's had so much success with his cat, Jason. All right, hi, Katie. Katie wants wet food and kibble. Bernie, play now. Then Katie, wet food, kibble. You can see how with multi-learner household, things can get complicated quick. We do have a course specifically around that, or a class specifically around that I will show you where to find in the future here. Allie, welcome to you and your 2 kittens, Maine Coon, 3 months old, new to buttons, haven't started yet, no worries. Awesome, Faye, great to see you again with Morgan, toy Manchester Terrier, 11 years, nice. Cindy, welcome to you. And Dusty, 1-year-old, started buttons 10 months ago, just started pressing her first button, treat. Awesome. Way to stick with it. I'm impressed. And it does not surprise me that you had success in the end with treat. We'll talk about that more, how to choose first buttons and words, how to motivate them. As you can hear with Katie pressing behind me, she loves pressing her food buttons, and that really has helped her blossom at the soundboard. Hi, Katie. Hi. Ash wants pets now too. Candy, welcome to you, and Opie, new to the buttons, and no worries. Let us know if you are having any trouble navigating, and we can give you a hand. Let me reshare my screen for you all. Hi, Katie. A little bit of housekeeping. We do recommend Chrome or Safari as your browser. So if you're having trouble seeing the presentation at all or hearing the presentation, that can help. If I look blurry, unfortunately, it is my rural internet. I'm in Central Virginia. That's not you. It's probably me. If it's just me that's blurry, as long as the presentation looks clear, you should be set. Saeed, welcome to you and Bella, full of energy and personality. Haven't been able to figure out how to teach her to use the buttons yet. No worries. Hopefully you'll have a better idea by the end of today. And we're going to be discussing general best practices today. They're not the only ways to have success. So if you've started otherwise and you're having success with your learner, great. I'm not here to tell you you're doing anything wrong. I'm just here to talk about best practices and to figure out the nuance of what is going to work for you, your learner, and maybe what to tweak if something hasn't worked thus far. Christy, welcome. You and your cats, they use multiple buttons mounted low. Great info. They'll activate them with their body or head. So fun. Would like to continue teaching them to use their paw. Okay. We will talk about that with target training for sure. They're very interested, but not motivated by treats. Okay. All great info. And as I fulfill Katie's kibble requests, yes, Katie, kibble, yes now. Kibble, yes. All right, Katie, 1 scoop for kibble. Let me introduce myself. And for anybody just joining us, I've got Bernie, my one-eyed tuxedo boy, Katie, my partially blind black cat right here. Hi. They're both a year old. I've got my senior mini American Shepherd, Ash, who will use the buttons occasionally as well. And then I have a 6-year-old border collie, Adora, who's been at it for 4.5 years now. And my name is Morgan Krug. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant. I've been working professionally with animals for 18 years now. And I'm best known for teaching my blind cat, Jasper, to use the buttons, who's pictured on the slide there. So she got her start when Adora did. Unfortunately, she has since passed from leukemia, but the progress we were able to make together with buttons eased her journey in so many ways. And so I'm very, very passionate about bringing buttons to every household and every learner who's up for it. On the agenda today are introductions, which we're doing right now. Then we'll chat through the keys to button teaching, modeling first words, and target training. This is an interactive discussion, so feel free to ask questions throughout in the chat. In the chat's a little bit easier for me to keep track of and to make sure that I answer your question fully. But if you do have follow-up questions, no problem. Just let me know, and we'll make sure that we get you help either today or going forward if it's a bit more advanced than the scope of today. So I'll share additional resources, where to attend future boot camps, because you're welcome to attend again, and our great mentorship calls for kind of those deep dive topics. Yeah, Christy will definitely chat about that. Catherine, welcome to you and your very expressive 11-year-old rescue cat. Engaged with clicker training, fantastic, and he knows how to touch it. Great. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can't combine that touch it cue with the modeling that you've already been doing. That's awesome. Usually it takes some time for them to connect the dots, particularly cats, but once they get it, ooh, do they take off with it. Sherry and Julian, welcome, both 5 years old, and great to see you again as well. Just started with the buttons. They aren't pressing yet. Sherry's only 4 pounds. Okay. Yeah, we'll with target training, we'll talk about getting that weight shift to press. And there have been guinea pigs who've successfully pressed the button. So 4 pounds is enough. Don't worry. Hi, Katie. Katie Smell. She was just sniffing my arm, just out of frame there. But yeah, anytime you can narrate interactions that they're having, that you can narrate what you're observing, that's all really, really helpful. We'll talk more about that. Don't worry. All right, if anybody's just joining us and hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves yet, feel free to do so in the chat. I will see it come through. All right, and there's a close-up of Bernie. So while Alexander Rossi and Christina Hunger were using buttons previously with their learners, FluentPet is the original button teaching system. So what does that mean? It means that they're specifically designed for animals, and our mission is to figure out how to teach dogs, cats, and the other animals we share this planet with how to talk. And we believe that pulling this off will take a village, a community that can develop and share button teaching tips and tricks, and work together to discover the most successful button teaching approaches. So that is where you all come in. Our success in this mission entirely depends on your success with your learners. And the more of us who are able to progress, the faster we can figure out just how far all this can go. And in case anybody is wondering, how far can all this go? We think this video really helps paint a picture of what's possible, and you'll probably recognize Alexis and Bunny.
The foundation for getting started with buttons is just a desire to connect.
Do you do outside?
I can't remember the exact order, but I think she pressed stranger mad, and I was like, what does that mean? And then ouch paw. And then she came over to me and she put her left paw in my hand, and I was like, okay. And I looked between her toes and she had a foxtail stuck between her toes.
This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
Jasper, she was able to request medication multiple times after having an eye procedure with eyes and help. And it's not all medical related. There's lots of fun examples too. One of my favorite early ones was with Scout, a Catahoula mix, who would repeatedly combine water and bone. Took us a while to figure out what she wanted, but it was ice cubes. And so she got an ice cube button and was able to advocate for herself in that way. So it really is amazing how creative they can be, even with a limited vocabulary. All right, so how do we begin? Hi, Bernie. He just did a little chirpy trill behind me. Hi, bud. Yeah, and so anytime you notice a vocalization, narrating that, talking to them, saying hi, acknowledging it, even if you're not sure what they want. Katie, unsurprisingly, wants more kibble. Yeah, and you are correct. I gave you wet food, but not kibble. That's my bad. I spaced there. All right, but how do we begin? Obviously, this is a bit more advanced, what we're seeing behind me here. Our very first step is going to be modeling. And before you have your buttons, you can do this verbally. Talk to your learners all the time. Narrate what it is that you're doing. Yes, Katie, kibble. Katie, want kibble now. Yes. And so whenever possible too, I like to model by bringing things to them at the board. Show them, yep, this is what you want. The board is where all the great stuff happens. It's where you are reinforced. And so the more you can reinforce at the board, the more you can keep pressing the button there, getting that reinforcement, those reps in. The reason I didn't set it down on the ground though is because I have my little senior guy here who would swoop right in, grumble at her, and eat the food himself. Hi, Katie. So she has an elevated feeding station instead. So, oh yes, wet food and kibble. Yes, let's do a scoop. Let's do a scoop. Yeah, for your wet food and kibble. Good girl. Yeah. And so it might look a little bit different at your house depending on, how the dynamics are, how many learners you have, what your space looks like, but talking to them, narrating what it is that you're doing, trying to keep track of the language that you're using for them. Kitty cat, I don't know what you're doing, silly. And for those of you who are multilingual, that's fantastic. You can pick and choose whatever you're saying most frequently and show them that you can avoid homonyms. You can use really distinct language so that they don't sound too similar. Calvin figured out fairly early on that Mad and Dad sounded too similar for Jason and wound up needing to re-record one of the buttons as a result. I had to switch hi and goodbye for that reason. Katie, kibble, look, I gave you kibble. Do you want more? Kibble right here, babe. There you go. I think because she didn't see me add it to her bowl, she was skeptical. Sorry. Yeah, and once you're ready to put the buttons down, the more we can say yes to their presses to capture their excitement, their enthusiasm around the board, the better. So we have 3 simple steps once the buttons are down. First, press a button, one that you can do immediately and frequently follow through on. That really helps. If you can follow through a dozen times a day, that's ideal. So that's where the easier it is to say yes to, the better. Step 2 is follow through. Show them the meaning of the word by making it happen. And then step 3 is repeat. Go back to step 1, repeat, repeat, repeat. It's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping them understand that the buttons have a consistent outcome each and every time. So what does this actually look like in our day-to-day practice? I have a video for you with Kelly and her learner Delmer. This is the first 24 hours that they had buttons down in their household, and they have 3 that they started with. Typically, we recommend starting with 2 or 3 buttons, and we'll chat a little bit more about when to add more in a moment, because that's a really great question. But yeah, 2 or 3 buttons tends to be the sweet spot on average. In their case, you'll see her modeling. Know that she's talking to him throughout and following through as well.
Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Pet. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Pet. Puzzle. Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle. One puzzle?
Puzzle. Puzzle.
Beautiful accidental
Outside.
press there.
Outside. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Outside.
So again, it's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping establish button has consistent outcome each and every time. And I have a note at the bottom here as well. Learners are going to all take different amounts of time before pressing. As cheesy as it sounds, it really is about the journey, not the destination. This is a lifelong communication skill and tool that we're working on with them. So keep a really strong foundation, stick with it, lots and lots of repetition there. All right, let's say you have only 60 seconds, maybe only 30 seconds of time, energy, focus a day. That's enough time to still be laying that foundation and working on that understanding of button equals something that I want each and every time. So here's Kelly with a different learner, this time Nushka. So you'll see Delmer's more advanced board setup behind them. But Nushka's working just on a snack button in this case. So Kelly's pressing snack with a piece of food to really drive home, you hear the sound, you're getting the food, and the button's going to smell like food. And she's also tossing the food a little bit away so that Nushka's reorienting to Kelly and the button each time to say, hey, yeah, I want more. Yeah, so lots of repetition. And again, that's just in 30 seconds. And it gets to the point after a few days of doing this once, twice a day, where you get distracted, you pick up your phone, start reading a text and email, and your learner's over right next to the button. It's like, all right, how do I get a snack? How do I get this to happen? And it can be a play button, it can be pets, as long as you're following through with what the button says. That's the key. So as long as it's motivating to them, it can be whatever they find valuable. Thank you. And Calvin's adding some really great links in the chat here, including more examples of that rapid modeling. Yeah, in February, we had a rapid modeling challenge. So there's a lot of people's videos posted from around then. All right. So how do we choose our first buttons and words, or know when to expand or what to expand to? What I want to emphasize is to set yourself up for success. This should be fun. It should be, I mean, obviously there's a lot of repetition, but we want to be setting ourselves up for success by choosing things that are easy for us to say yes to frequently throughout the day. So 2 or 3 buttons again seems to be the sweet spot. If you have more than that down, no problem. Unless your learner seems like they're overwhelmed, unless they're not making much progress. We've seen learners start with 6 or more buttons that have had tons of success, like Puppy Parker Posey, who is best known for her iconic squeaker car press when there was an ambulance outside of her house. But then others, yeah, tend to get overwhelmed by more than 3 buttons down, or it might just take them a little longer to pick it up and to distinguish which one equals which outcome. If there's a lot, but they can absolutely do it. So I'm not saying if you started with more that you necessarily have to pare back. And when we're thinking about starting buttons, ideally they should be motivating and meaningful to your individual learner, easy and convenient to model immediately, and concrete or actionable. We don't want to start with abstract concepts if we can help it, because the soundboard itself is an abstract tool that they're learning how to use. So if we can teach them with these actionable and easily understandable buttons first, lay that foundation, then we can expand to advanced concepts, abstract concepts from there much more readily. So just lots of repetition, keep it simple, get success, and then we can expand. And examples of common starting buttons. And if there's anything you're debating between, let us know in the chat. We're happy to discuss. If anybody has had success already and you want to share what buttons worked for you as starter buttons, I'm always up for hearing. That's where I've learned great kind of more unique ones like cat TV. Sometimes like having a YouTube video being able to be turned on for a cat. That's not something that's always very easy to communicate via body language, right? And that's something that's fairly easy to say yes to and repeatedly, and might be great for cats that are less classically playful, less food motivated. And that's one that wasn't on my radar because with low vision animals, that's just not something that my cats have previously enjoyed. So I love hearing y'all's feedback as well. All right, so other examples of common starting buttons. We can look at a more general concept like play, or you can start specific. For my cats, I started with eat, pets, and play as their 3 buttons. But for my border collie Adora, when she got her start, we began with outside and ball specifically, because ball is life. That's what's most motivating for her. Now, actually, in retrospect, I'm like, I think we started with too exciting of buttons, too motivating, because it took a long time for her to be able to approach the board without just flailing and flinging everything everywhere, because she was just like, yes, outside and ball, this is awesome. So finding a sweet spot of motivation that's going to keep them in ideally a think and learn zone is what we recommend. So that's where just observing again what you're saying to them and how they're reacting to what it is that you're saying. Because if it's something that's easy to say yes to, easy to talk consistently about, and happens, again, a dozen times a day, that could be a perfect starting button for you all. Outside is on here as a common starting button, but that doesn't mean that you should feel pressured to start with it. If you live on the 10th floor, it's not going to be easy and convenient for you to model immediately. especially a dozen times a day, right? If you're in the middle of a heat wave, the way I am right now in Virginia, and a lot of us are in different spots here, I know, yeah, that's going to be a challenge to say yes enough. So set yourself up for success. The other thing about outside is that you are then leaving the board. You're not getting those reps in the way you can with food presses or with play, pets, other easily repeatable things that you can stay in one location. Oh, Christy, I love it. So success with kitty treat. Awesome. Catio, that's fantastic. All done and want. Very nice. And want and all done are both early abstract concepts that can be really, really helpful for our learners. Yeah, especially want is a great one for them to practice. But I also paired the treat button with later and all done. They would love to have them nonstop. Yep, you are previewing what we'll talk about in a couple slides. I love it. All right, so my two love treats more than anything, but I heard not to use treat at the start. What do you think? Yes, so that is actually outdated information that we are trying to update both within the community. There's just a lot of misconceptions that are lingering from when we got started 5 years ago. And to this day, Bunny still doesn't have food on her board, but uses her buttons in ways to request food. Think about like bird belly, things like this. Because what we found is that not giving them food buttons doesn't stop them from wanting food or asking about it. It often can just frustrate them. And if that's going to be the most motivating thing for them, and it's easy to say yes to, I've even gotten to the point with dogs where I've broken a kibble in half so I can still say yes and just be kind of just a Pez dispenser essentially for them, or a vending machine. Just go, 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 and show them that each time they press that, yeah, I'm going to say yes to it. I like a general eat button for that reason, or snack, or a general food, so that you can narrate it while you're eating, while anybody else in the household is eating. It can be for training sessions. It can be just to press the food button and then they get a piece of food. It can be for a puzzle for them to take longer to work through. That's one that's nice to say yes to. And then you give them, a frozen licky mat or frozen stuffed Kong, something like that, that takes them longer to eat. And then often they want a nap afterwards because they've had to work their brain to get everything out of it. So thinking about ways to set yourself up for success and say yes, that might be a little bit, lower work than just pressing a button and following through. The reason why it works and why even the most food motivated learners don't typically spam or abuse the button by pressing it repeatedly. There's often a phase where they're like, let me see if you're going to really say yes to all these presses. But once they realize that you will, then they're like, okay, anytime I want food, I can just press this button. That makes it easy for them to see value in other things. Think of it this way. The reason why slot machines are so addicting is because you never know when you're going to win that jackpot, right? And you win just enough times that you're like, oh my gosh, I got to keep playing, especially if you're on like a win streak. Apparently, I don't know. This is not something that appeals to me personally. But if you knew that every single time you sat down at that slot machine and you pulled the lever, you were going to win a jackpot of some amount every single time, eventually you'd get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm kind of hungry now. I really need to go to the bathroom. And especially if you knew that you could sit back down and that seat would be available to you and you would win again, no matter the time, assuming the machine was turned on. And in our case, the human is not asleep upstairs when they're pressing or wherever, that they can press and they're going to hear a yes. It is no longer a limited resource, and it can significantly devalue in a good way. It's revolutionized my feral cat's relationship with food. Jasper in particular, back in the day, she would eat to the point of regurgitation. She would make herself sick repeatedly until she got the food button, realized that she could ask whenever she wanted. It got to the point where she was willing to leave food in her bowl. She would tell me when she was all done. And so again, there's often a time where you're like, oh my gosh, these are a lot of presses. I don't know if I can say yes to all of these, but if you can stick with it, get through it, yeah, that can help. And Jennifer, when I'm whenever I'm saying this, the one exception is that it has been shown that retrievers and some labs in particular lack a satiation gene, hence why they're so obsessive about certain things. So there is certainly a chance that you will get treat presses all of the time. But yeah, food button and then working on boundaries can be good. And if you are nervous about it, oh my gosh, Bernie, hi, buddy. If you are nervous about it, you could always start with 2 or 3 other buttons and kind of save that as your super high value or high or Hail Mary sort of button that you can come in and utilize if you're not getting success, if you're not getting enough interest after a few weeks of modeling and maybe some target training that we'll talk about. Yeah. Yep. Excellent, excellent point here. We have a doggy door. So even though I recently added outside, it's been harder to model frequently. Yes, I usually try to articulate this while explaining why outside can be a challenge. And again, it's so often on people's start button lists. So it's makes sense why you would have it there. But yeah, if they already have a pet door, or dog bells or bell potty bells, that sort of thing, they already have a way to communicate what they want or to just do it themselves. So it's less meaningful, it's less motivating than it would be otherwise. So thinking about how you can choose buttons that bridge a gap, something that's motivating to them, that they want, and that maybe is challenging to ask for via body language alone, or that they don't have a method of asking for already. Christy said I put the catio button away at night as the 1-year-old cat pushes it multiple times at 3 a.m. to go out. Yeah, there's sometimes can be management things that we do around that. Although often they will eventually learn that, yeah, you're not going to be following through on that press at that time. And oh my gosh, Jennifer, I love that you added a swim button or swimming button. That's fantastic and highly motivating. And that's one that even if you can't say yes a dozen times a day, that's such a high value activity, I would assume, for your learner, especially since you already chose it and it's bridging a gap that and typically tiring enough that they're not wanting as many reps anyway. That's great. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful for thinking about the treat button. But again, if you're nervous, no pressure, and you can always save it, to add down the line. And then pet scritches, cuddles together, some kind of affiliative button tends to be a popular choice as well. And you can get creative about how you're modeling these things. If you know you're going to be snuggled up on the couch watching TV for the rest of the night with them, pop that pets button out of the hex tile, bring it with you, and you can verbally narrate it and press it intermittently. The first time I recorded the walk button, I didn't start with a walk button because I knew I couldn't say yes to all of my border collies requests for walk. So I waited to add it until the weather was better. But I recorded it while we were out walking. Pressed it multiple times while we were out. We got home, walk all done, home now. Narrating that, pressing whatever is already on the board, and then adding it. Anytime I'm making a board adjustment, I want to model it right away for my learners, and I want them to have the option of being present. They don't have to be, but I like to at least give them the option so that they're not coming in from outside, that sort of thing. And being like, oh my gosh, everything is different. Where is this? Where is that? That can be frustrating, overwhelming for them. All right, so quick summary. If you're looking for a shortcut, just picking 3 buttons, putting out 3 hex tiles, go. You can always adjust where the buttons are. You can always adjust which hex tiles you have, which colors, what shape of the 3. You can always get creative and adjust. Change is inevitable, especially when we think about this as a lifelong communication skill and tool. Their interests are going to change. Their abilities are going to change. The change is inevitable. We just don't want to frustrate and overwhelm them. So modeling any of those adjustments that you make. And even for tiny learners, tiny kittens, I still don't like to start with more than 2 buttons per hex tile, just so that they're not overwhelmed and there's kind of visual distinction there. Yeah, and when you're thinking about the layout, if you aren't sure yet where you want your soundboard to live, that's okay. I'd rather you dive in, just start modeling it, bring it with you. You can carry the whole board, especially while it's small, until you know where it's going to live. And then it makes it easy to take them on vacation with a board if you wanted to do something like that. It's not mandatory, but a lot of us have either travel boards or travel with the board. And I find that it does, especially for my cats, just help them immediately settle in and feel more at home, feel more safe in a new environment. We've even had community members bring boards with their learners to the vet to articulate how they're feeling there. And even if the learners don't use it, there's something about us pressing that can get through more than just talking to them, especially in a stressful situation. And some of us have likened it even to it's almost like, all right, I promise if it's a button press, they know you're going to follow through on it, even if it's not right away. So, last note about where to put the board, a central location that's easy for you to get to, easy to model is great. Yeah, and Jennifer said we have 2 complete sets, one upstairs, one downstairs. That's fantastic. That works great as well. And it's up to you if you want to keep those identical, or you can start customizing them to what's relevant in each location. Maybe have the upstairs board reference the main board downstairs if you don't want to have it be 2 giant boards as you continue to advance. Totally up to y'all. Yeah, and centrally located, so it's easy for you to get to, easy to model, and enough room for them to get fully around the soundboard. A lot of them like to process and take space to do a board thinking lap. A lot of them like to get behind the buttons and watch us while they're pressing. So leaving enough space to do so for that can encourage them. And we often get questions about, do you recommend having them spread out? You can, and plenty of folks have started out that way, like with outside by the back door, play by the play bin, food in the kitchen. The drawback with that is that once you get to advanced concepts, which we're about to talk about, a more button and all done now and later, these can go with outside, play, eat. And so if things are all spread out, how are they going to combine things? So starting in a central location tends to just take an extra step out. If you already have things spread out, you can also just do a duplicate button on a central board and then either eventually fade out the extra buttons or like leave the one by the back door as a doorbell if that's helpful, or for really out of sight or something like that. Totally up to you. All right, abstract concepts. I know for some of you all, it might be a little while till you are at this point with buttons, but you can always be narrating this and thinking about what set of abstract concepts might work well for you early on. Want is a fantastic early abstract concept that you can be saying like, oh, want this? Is another one. You can start working on questions, narrating. But notice that they're listed in pairs here. The reason for that is that you can model them in contrast or in opposition to one another. And when we look at something like more or yes or now, that's a lot more actionable and concrete and easy to understand in contrast to all done, no, and later. Yes, more outside now as you're going outside with them. More eat as you're giving them more food. Much more actionable than no, outside all done. We'll go later. And then nothing happens. That takes longer for them to understand. So whenever you can model in opposition, in contrast to one another, to another concept, that can assist. And so maybe more and all done is a good choice for you all. I found early on with my border collie, however, that all done meant the end of fun as I had taught it. And that wound up being more frustrating to her. So in her case, now and later actually wound up being the right early abstract pair. I made a quick board adjustment when I realized how frustrated she was getting with all done. So again, change is inevitable. There's some times where you don't know until you try it. And it's always okay to undo what you did. Again, we're not trying to frustrate and overwhelm them, just go slow, but you can always make adjustments. So now and later wound up being the better choice for her because later means yes, just not right now. And that's a far more acceptable answer to a very high-strung border collie. Other abstract concepts can include emotions. Think about a positive emotion like happy in contrast to a negative like mad, sad, or frustrated. If your goal is to get an ouch button on your board, that was really important to me. I didn't find emotions to be as important, and I didn't feel great about labeling how I was like, well, I don't want to say that they definitely feel this way, even though it's my job to read and translate animal body language. I didn't want to be presumptuous. That felt, I don't know, speciesist. Anyway, uh, I very quickly found that they will use ouch as mad or frustrated if they don't have another way to express themselves. I've seen that not only in my house, but in many other households now, anecdotally, as have the researchers. So we do recommend having some early abstract emotions on the board before adding an ouch button for that reason. Time concepts can be great. So not just now or later, but if you wait a little while, it could be now, soon, and later. You might use a before button or remember the way Janine, one of our community members, uses. Yesterday versus today versus tomorrow. These are all things that you can be narrating and modeling in contrast to each other. Names of your household members, me versus you. I'm not personally concerned about pronouns with my learners. We just kind of use third person for everything. But yeah, it's up to you what you want to prioritize, what you find interesting, what your learners are interested in. I picked mom as the label for myself before realizing how much talking in third person around other humans I would be doing. So my neighbors probably think I'm insane narrating mom this, mom that, if they could hear me. But yeah, it's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. If you have kids and your learners used to hearing you called mom or dad already, that might be the easiest thing. If you live with other adults that are calling you by your first name, that might be the easiest thing for you to go by because that's what your learner is used to you being called. And so you can work on like a tea party. Mom eat, for example, Katie eat, Bernie eat, Ash eat, Adore eat in my household, and kind of be working on all of these contrasts. Yeah, and be on the lookout for mentorship calls. I'll show you where to find those in our continuing education in just the next slide, if you are interested in doing a deeper dive on any of these topics, including target training. So let's talk about an overview of it at least. And we've got 3 videos that we recommend, though there are tons of great ones out there. So these are not the only ones. And within our FluentPet community, there are even more that I can show you where to find. So target training can help them connect the dots. Because if you're modeling consistently and you've chosen buttons that are motivating enough for your learner, often they will attempt to press, but not always. Often they need help as well with confidence, building agency, or just that eye paw or eye nose coordination, depending on how they naturally prefer to press, or eye shoulder in Bernie's case. Plenty sit on the buttons as well. As long as they're not frustrated and you can understand them, they can press how they want. But there are advantages to paw presses, certainly. There's advantages for dogs anyway with nose presses. It's easier to wall mount as a result or to differentiate with smell on the buttons. I like to use natural scents on the buttons, like the mom button lived in my pocket before going on the board, just to help them differentiate. The litter button went in clean litter before going on the board. Walk, again, we were outside. I kind of dabbed it in the ground a few times as we were walking. You can get creative about stuff like that. So Calvin very helpfully added the links in the chat if anybody wants to bookmark things there. But again, I'll show you where you can find these. In the meantime, let me give you a quick demo. I'm going to use a play button in case one of my cats wakes up and comes over so that I can very quickly wave a ribbon around for them. So the very first video, the one with Alexis and Bunny, a shortcut from this. If your learner already knows how to high five or nose touch or shake, it's okay to pop the button out of the hex tile, put it in the palm of your hand, and cue them to give you that high five or nose touch, shake, whatever it is. In this case, again, it's the play button that I picked up and that I'm pressing. So then I would be engaging with my learner with play, whatever they find motivating, whatever style of play that is. So you can get some good reps in that way. So for me, I am usually modeling exclusively for at least a couple weeks, getting my learners interested, even if they're not watching me model. And remember, I had a fully blind learner who never saw me press. She was never able to visualize that aspect, and she was still able to press no problem. And the way we got there was with just this getting her interested first and then helping capture the behavior and kind of using target training to give her that last assist. So the next two with Justin Bieber the cat and the cat school videos are not only great for cats, but other small learners as well, particularly ones who need help with the weight shift to press, to get enough of their front kind of weight shifted to get the button fully activated. What I want you to do if you see them trying to activate, so both of those videos will help with a perch, and take you step by step through things. But again, if you have been modeling and your learners are interested and they're coming over and just napping on or near the board, that's a sign that they see that this is valuable, that something's going to happen. So that can be a great opportunity when they wake up to do some target training then, or some capturing then, which I'm about to show you. Especially if you see them coming over and sniffing at the button, nosing it a little bit, but not able to activate it fully, batting at it, but not putting that full weight shift onto it. If you see them interacting at all, when in doubt, help them out. I don't want them frustrated. I don't want them giving up, flailing, walking away. Just give them an assist by pressing the button, not their body, the button itself. And if you can time it and press the button while they're trying to activate it, whether it's with their nose or their paw, you can press it at the same time. They're going to get a lot of really great tactile feedback in that moment by feeling the button move under their paw, hearing it play if it's got the speaker in it, seeing it light up if it's a connect button that has the external speaker, feeling it vibrate. Just all of that can help connect the dots and understand, oh, it's pushing this down that makes the sound play and gets me what it is that I want. But it takes, again, time and repetition. In my blind cat's case, she used to clear the entire counter of whatever was on it anytime she wanted more food in her bowl, anytime there was even a little bit of space that she could feel from her nose when she went in. So she would knock her bowl off the counter to let me know that she wanted it refilled. So as she was going along, tapping it to the edge, I took a button that was food related at the time, because that's what she wanted, put it right where she was about to smack the bowl, and helped press the button as she was hitting it. I did that twice before and was ready immediately to throw food down. I did that twice, and she started to look for the button and was like, all right, that's so much easier than clearing the whole counter. So helping them when they're interested, when it's relevant, can really just connect the dots that much faster. So Christy asked, if my cats are independent using their body and head, should I stick with that versus continue to try paw training? It's kind of tricky to mount them low on the wall, etc. Yeah, I do see why that would be a challenge. And I don't think there's any harm in practicing your target training and working on that. I think if you teach them how to press with their paw and they just so clearly have the head rub preference, the low mount, as tough as it is, might just be, and maybe working on, some on the floor that they can do a cheek rub in that case, or floor mounted for, or laying on the floor for them to try with their paws. Yeah, I understand why you would want to. I don't think there's any harm in working on it, practicing that skill, and then seeing Katie. We did target training. She is primarily a paw presser. I think after seeing Bernie lay on the buttons, she will at times activate that way. But she still, she uses both of her paws interchangeably now, though it took probably about 6 months before she was paw with the buttons. Yeah, it just takes time. And I think the more ways we can get them comfortable, the better. Again, especially when we think about it as a lifelong skill. If they develop, arthritis in one shoulder, it's usually both, but maybe it's just one. Maybe they can switch paws then. Maybe they can go back to cheek rubbing if that's more comfy. Oh my gosh, Allison, I totally recognize your name now. That's hilarious. It's great to see you again. Do you think it makes sense to introduce the buttons in a smaller room with less distractions so they're more likely to make the association? Also, should I do it with one cat at a time? Excellent question. Sometimes less distractions can be setting them up for success. Absolutely. So it's up to you. The centrally located board, though, so that you can get the frequency in. If your quiet room is too tucked out of the way that you're not going to model, I would opt for the central location and then maybe move to your training zone, pick up the whole board, especially while it's easy to move, or just pick up one button and go work on target training individually. I like modeling for everyone just throughout the day or, in that 60-second rapid modeling session. But yeah, doing some solo training sessions can be great. Although if you have one learner who's more interested than another, just run with it with your Intuit learner. They can absolutely still learn from each other, kind of add buttons at the speed of your fastest learner, and you can always have a duplicate board or eventually merge them. There are lots of options and no one rule when it comes to that. And Faye is asking, should you place their paw on the button? Ideally not, just because there's not muscle memory involved if we're doing it for them. And some of our learners are sensitive enough that then they might shy away from us if we're approaching them at the board, if they think we're going to be manhandling them, even gently. It really just depends on them, their personal space, their bubble. We can even be thinking about when modeling, particularly for some of our more sensitive learners, kind of modeling and then moving out of the way. If they are sensitive to space, and in my case, I have herding dogs, so they're very sensitive to I move in, they kind of want to move back a lot of times. So I'll model and then kind of move out of the way so they can have the option to come in if there is anything that they want to press. But also if I press outside and they start going towards the back door, great. That I already pressed it. There's no need for them to. They're telling me with body language what it is they want. And body language, we're still honoring that. It's still a full sentence. And I went many directions there. I could talk about buttons all day and it all connects in my brain. I'm very passionate about this, as you can see. So hopefully that made sense. Cindy says, we started with play and treat buttons for my cat, Dusty. She started recently to press treat by herself. Fantastic. She's pressing it every day, multiple times a day. Great. I noticed once that I was having breakfast, making toast, and she went to press the treat button. So I thought she might be saying that she could smell my breakfast. Should I keep it short? Or trying to keep it short. I'm not sure what the next step is. Should I add a word to refine what she wants to say? If yes, which words would be best? I was thinking dry food, wet food, my name, her name, smell, now and later. That is all fantastic. Yeah, I love it. What I like to think about is, what is your learner most motivated by? What's interesting to them? And in my cat Katie's case, it is food. She is primarily food motivated. That brings her so much joy. And so we got specific. We started with our general eat, but we got specific into wet food, kibble, training for initiating a training session with treats, puzzle, so that I can say yes and have a little bit of a break. Yeah, so that all is fantastic. Names are excellent. A lot of learners like to press our name for connection and attention, or their name. Bernie loves to press his name to announce himself. That can be, yeah, incredibly motivating. Smell, at least be narrating anytime you're observing them smelling, even if you're not ready to put that on the board yet. That to me also helps unlock their desire to narrate. Once they realize that they're smelling things that we aren't, they are often excited to bridge that gap or to ask us questions or to kind of test those different abilities. Yeah, I love it. And now and later is always a great early pair, especially if you start getting more treat presses than you can keep up with. And Lorette, let me add right now a link comparing different cameras because there's pros and cons. I love, yeah, just having a camera to be able to look back and review what they're doing, what angle they're approaching from, what they pressed if I was sleeping and missed it, or, et cetera. It's just really, really helpful. All right. I know we are running out of time. So before we dive into any more questions, let me show you where you can find some really great resources here. All right, so within the FluentPet community, we have our welcome area with start button teaching. If you are the type of learner that loves step-by-step instructions, this section is for you. If that's not your style, no worries. FAQs, there's 41 of them, more than that, that last that we checked. Lots of in-depth info here as well. If you have a question in the middle of the night and you don't feel like typing, you can guarantee at least part of it has been answered here. Though you're always welcome to ask within the Bootcamp forum or the general forum as well, the kind of general discussion portion. Button Bootcamp is just for folks like you who have been through Bootcamp. And you're always welcome to attend another Bootcamp if that would be helpful. Would love to have you. So you can see under upcoming, you can always RSVP for another one here. We have them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then you can also switch from upcoming to past, and then you can find the recording from today, which will be actually there once I hit end today. It's not there quite yet. We can also look at our mentorship calls tab here. And I saw a couple of you in a mentorship call earlier, and I encourage everybody to attend whatever sounds interesting to them here. This is currently free, so take advantage of it. We've got topics like picking your first words, more in-depth info on target training, body language specifically, and translating that with the buttons, cat specific. And this is with Julie, who is a zookeeper with the Santa Fe Teaching Zoo, and is working on buttons with not only her cats at home, but like tortoises and lemurs, and yeah, just amazing projects going on there. I always love attending her. I'm going to RSVP actually right now. So once you RSVP, it will show on your calendar in your time zone. Modeling, yeah, and there's a bunch up for July. So please, again, take advantage of that while it is free for you. Resources, got links to Learning Center, paw targeting tutorials, soundboard planning tool. If you want to have an idea of where things are going, great. Let your learner be the guide. Let them discover what's interesting to them and kind of build out the board based on that. Yeah, in practice, getting a bunch of wet food kibble presses, these sorts of things from Katie isn't the most interesting. But what is fascinating to me is that food, her love of food, and her love of those buttons allowed her to have the confidence and the proficiency to coin her own unique combination of wet food water, which is not just her wet food with water in it. No, it is her freeze-dried food that has been soaked in water. And then once it's mush, that is her wet food water. And she didn't have a freeze-dried food button. So she coined her own unique phrase for that. So that's where if I hadn't allowed her to explore food and press as much as she wanted to around all of that, I don't think she would get to that unique combo as quickly as she did. Anyway, so big fan of letting them be your guide. So under resources here, you can find so many great videos and examples, including from Calvin and Jason and some of our other mentors as well, like Jennifer. Yeah, so check all this out. More detail from Kelly and Delmer about food-related buttons in case anybody wants more convincing discussion. You can find sales here, other deep dives, chat if you've got updates. Last section I want to show you, though again, all of discussion is great. You can see so much info. Show off your soundboard. There are as many soundboard layouts as there are households, sometimes more than one if you've got different boards for different learners or different levels of your home. So you'll see a lot of kind of cockpit style, where actually there's less cockpit style. I have to scroll down, where it's kind of this loop and they enter the center. But remember, if you can, give them enough space to get behind the board. If they like to watch you while pressing, that can really encourage that independence and the frequency of pressing. They like to know that, yeah, we're about to jump up, we're about to respond. They want to watch us for our reaction. So setting up the board in a way that you can do that. And the wall mount tends to be conducive. I love that rather than marking up their wall, they grabbed plexiglass and did it ergonomically at an angle. Genius. Yeah, so get creative. This is all still pretty new at 5 years old here. And we're still learning so much from you and everyone who's using buttons. All right. And I want to say we should do a deep dive on board planning because I could talk about this all day. So if that is interesting to you, let us know. And um, Karen's still figuring out, but you should have access, I want to say, for at least another few months as part of your initial bootcamp onboarding here. Yeah. Oh, awesome. All right. Let's share a couple more resources, including a coupon code for you guys. And then if you have any additional questions, let me know. We also have the Let's Get Them Pressing course. So in addition to all the free options that I just shared, this is a 4-week cohort-based class. There's live coaching as well as asynchronous materials that we go through. It's taught by Diane of NeuroDog Training, who has Scarlett with lots of success, but the course was designed with Alexis with Bunny as well. I'm often there helping instruct, and in the asynchronous materials, you'll see me in the cat info. There's 25% off that does not expire with the code course25. And then if you're realizing that you need more buttons or hex tiles or anything like that, we do have a 15% off code that's good for the next 24 hours. I will add that. Oh, awesome. Thank you.